Hello dear students. Today we'll discuss about the digestive system of Scoliodon. I am Dr. P. Rosina George, Assistant Professor in Zoology, St. Joseph College for Women, Visakhapatnam. We are going to discuss about the alimentary canal, digestive glands, food and physiology of digestion in Scoliodon, some questions based on it and the references. The learning outcomes are: you will be able to study the major components of alimentary canal and digestive glands of Scoliodon. And you will be able to understand the food and physiology of Scoliodon. The digestive system of Scoliodon consists of the alimentary canal and the digestive glands. The alimentary canal starts with the mouth and terminates in the anus. Mouth is a wide crescentic opening on the ventral side of the head. It is bounded by folds of integument called as upper and lower lips. The mouth leads into a spacious dorsoventrally compressed buccal cavity. The buccal cavity is lined with a thick mucous membrane. It is raised ventrally into a thick fold to form the so-called tongue, which is non-muscular, non-glandular, and non-protusible. The teeth are oblique and have sharp, more or less compressed cups, the edges of which are smooth and non-serrated. They are all alike in shape, homodont, and are borne in several parallel rows on the inner margin of the upper and lower jaws. They are not attached to the jaw cartilages and are simply embedded in the skin like scales. The buccal cavity merges posteriorly with the large pharynx, which is lined by ectoderm. Pharynx on either lateral side bears the internal openings of the spiracles and 5 vertical internal gill slits or gill pouches. The cavity of pharynx is lined with mucous membrane containing numerous dermal denticles. The pharynx narrows posteriorly to form the short and wide esophagus. The esophagus has thick muscular walls with an internal lining of mucous membrane raised into longitudinal folds. The esophagus widens posteriorly to form the large muscular stomach. The stomach is bent on itself and forms a J-shaped organ. The long, wider, distensible proximal limb, which is called the cardiac stomach, while the short, narrow distal limb is called the pyloric stomach. At the junction of cardiac and pyloric limbs, there is a blind outgrowth, the blind sac and sphincter wall. The lining of the pyloric stomach is quite smooth proximally, but is slightly folded distally. At the end of pyloric stomach, there is a muscular bursa entiana. The opening of pyloric stomach into the bursa entiana is guarded by a circular band of muscle fibers called the pyloric wall. The short and narrow rectum is the last part of the alimentary canal. The tubular rectal gland opens dorsally into the rectum. Its function is not known properly, but the rectum opens into the cloaca through anus. Into the cloaca also opens the urinogenital ducts. The bursa entiana continues into the intestine. The intestine is a wide tube running straight backwards into abdominal cavity, and its middle region is like cardiac stomach in diameter. Its narrow anterior part receives the bile and pancreatic ducts. The internal mucous lining of the intestine is folded anti-clockwise into a characteristic fold, the scroll wall. Its one edge attached to the inner wall of the intestine and the other rolled up longitudinally on itself into a scroll, making an anti-clockwise spiral of about 2.5 turns. The scroll wall serves not only to increase the extent of the absorptive surface of the intestine, but also prevents the rapid flow of food through the intestine. Let's see the digestive glands of Scoliodon. Liver is an elongated gland consisting of two lobes which extends back along the greater part of the abdominal cavity. The two lobes are united anteriorly and attached to septum transversum by a ligament but remain apart posteriorly. The right lobe of the liver carries a V-shaped thin-walled sac, the gallbladder, which stores the bile secreted by the liver. The gallbladder communicates with the anterior end of the intestine through bile duct. The liver produces bile, stores glycogen and fat. It also destroys worn out red blood corpuscles since Kupffer cells are present. Pancreas is a compact bilobed gland situated in the angle between the cardiac and pyloric stomach. It comprises a longer dorsal lobe running parallel to the posterior part of the cardiac stomach and a smaller ventral lobe lying closely applied to the pyloric stomach. The pancreatic duct opens into the intestine just opposite to the opening of the bile duct. The rectal or cecal gland is a short, thick, hollow diverticulum arising from the dorsal wall of the rectum. It is richly vascularized and formed of lymphoid tissue. It discharges a fluid into the intestinal lumen, but the physiological effect of the fluid is unknown. Spleen is a large lymphoid organ attached with the cardiac and pyloric stomach. It produces lymphocytes and thus has no physiological relation with the elementary. Let's see the food and physiology of digestion in Scoliodon. Scoliodon is carnivorous and feeds mainly on other fishes, but the diet may also include rock crabs, lobsters, and spider crabs. Food is swallowed without mastication. The teeth of dogfish only prevent the escape of prey from the mouth and do not perform the function of mastication. Probably the teeth may be used for tearing the food. Since there are no salivary glands in the mouth, there is no digestion in the buccal. The wall of the pharynx possesses numerous mucous glands. The secretion of these glands has no digestive function but simply helps in the passage of food. The esophagus also has no digestive function. The digestion starts only in the cardiac stomach. The mucous membrane of cardiac stomach secretes the gastric juice, which contains pepsin and hydrochloric acid that converts proteins into syntonin, proteoses, and peptones. The gastric juice is not able to digest chitin. The pyloric stomach and scroll wall have no digestive activity of their own, but they activate the pancreas. The pancreas secretes trypsin, amylopsin, and lipase. As the semi-digested food enters the intestine, it is acted upon by the bile and the pancreatic juice. The bile makes the food alkaline and thus helps the action of pancreatic juice. The trypsin acts on the remaining proteins. The amylopsin converts starch into sugar and lipase turns fats into fatty acids. The digested food is absorbed into the blood over the extensive surfaces of the intestine and scroll valve. Now let's take a pause and answer these questions. The teeth in Scoliodon are adapted for holding and tearing, biting, chewing, biting, tearing, and chewing. Next, liver of Scoliodon is single-lobed, bilobed, trilobed, four-lobed. Answers are: the teeth in Scoliodons are adapted for holding and tearing, and the liver of Scoliodon is bilobed. In summary, the digestive system of Scoliodon is specialized for a high protein diet, efficiently breaking down and absorbing nutrients from its prey, and the spiral valve in the intestine is a distinctive feature among sharks, allowing for efficient digestion despite the relatively short length of the intestine. These are some of the references for this topic. Thank you.